Hey, I just wanted to come on here and just check in since we started grad school 6 weeks ago, and now we're just at the midpoint of the semester. It's going by super, super fast, and I'm still trying to figure out how do I make good videos. I have so many ideas, and I just have gone made peace with the fact that we are going to co-create this channel together. I'm just gonna show up and share my stories, and then find out how to best build the community that belongs here. I have a couple other different channels where I've niched out some different things, and I just really feel like the community is ultimately what's going to build it. And today I just thought I would take a moment to do some reflections of starting my GIS program and 1 year later, how much progress I have made and how much things have changed, how much I've learned. And I really maybe perhaps better understand when I was first starting, I would hear all these terms and I knew they were all part of the ecosystem, but I didn't know where to find them, what they were, how they fit together, how you use them. And it has definitely been a journey. I have sunk into many, many tech holes. I have also been doing many more talks on tech. I do my weekly podcast that airs on 360 Talk Radio for Women. And now those podcasts are on my Muse and Metrics channel. I'm going to be hosting a GIS day, which is going to be on the Maps Data Design channel. And here I'm going to be doing DevFest, which is just different technical topics. And I've been putting a lot of my tech videos on this channel, but also just want to introduce myself and kind of who I am, what I'm about, and where I feel like I can add the most value in the YouTube ecosystem. And I feel like it's as someone who can inspire and share opportunities that I see, and hopefully just inspiration on this journey that I've taken to just learn all of these new things. And I had put together this particular talk for women in GIS as a lightning talk on the slides over here, slides over here, and I wanted to be sure to just revisit it because I think it's a good opportunity to just like, what does 1 year later look like? And this is my journey from urban planning to GIS in spatial data science, digital twins, and GeoEnt AI. And trust me, if you've known me my whole life, you've always known that I've been on adventures. You know, I'm always someone who's up for learning something new. And I have definitely found like a lot of people definitely tag me the word inspiring. And I would very much like to continue in that mode of inspiring others to the best that I'm able. And I've just found that this last year has taken me in some really new directions, but they feel very authentic and they feel right. And so I'm just following the path where it leads. I have some very specific ideas of the skills that I want to learn and how they all kind of fit together. And I know that I'm a ways away from bringing that all together, but I'm much further along. Some of my earliest videos that I did here really just focused on just, hey, like I'm aware that there's this data thing. I'm aware that there's this tech thing, and I'm aware there's this GIS thing, but I really don't even have a starting point except to know I signed up for school and I'll follow the path wherever it may lead. And I do feel like I'm in a lot of groups, and often people question like, well, is school really worth it? And what's the value? And can I just learn this on my own? And I think one of the things I've really gotten from school is just so many opportunities, ones that have come directly through university and ones that I've seen on my own and I've raised my hand and I've applied for. And they're not all specifically for university students. I mean, really anybody can raise their hand and apply for these things. But I will say that I think my commitment to school and being a graduate student has helped me get a lot of things that I might not have otherwise. So that has been enormous value from school, in addition to the discipline that you get. It just really hones and you work that discipline muscle of making sure you're hitting your deadlines and you're challenging yourself and doing the difficult things and getting to the other side, and then just going, okay, I get it. I get what that learning transformation was, and I saw where I got stuck, and I can see where I can do better. The reading and writing is fine for me. For me, it is definitely the coding that I'm really having to work through, and that's okay. That's what I signed up for. It's what I'm really wanting to learn. So let's just do a really quick recap of this. And so these are some of the images that I have kind of representing kind of urban planning and sort of 3D GIS that I got from Adobe Firefly because I love playing with AI. So this was some of their image generation. And so this is me. I am a USC Trojan, so fight on. And I am someone who I got my BA in international relations in 1996 and returned to graduate school in 2021, so May of 2021. So I'm coming up on 2.5 years back in graduate school, and I still have another just over a year to go uh, to graduate with my second master's. And I'm still at USC, love USC, love everything about USC. I'm such a fan. I have just had such a great experience there, and it is, sort of very much part of my educational foundation, very much part of my community. But this time I'm an online graduate student, so I get to pop onto campus joyfully, but I also have the benefit of being not in LA right now and able to sort of be different places. And that's been a really great benefit for me for online graduate school. So that's part of my, I highly endorse and recommend USC and the USC online program for all sorts of reasons, including the fact that it's one of the few universities that offers health insurance. And I just found that to be a great benefit and something that I needed. But also my background in international relations, I think you'll start now seeing like it all does tie together what I'm doing, even though it's been the long way round to get here. Uh, it is that's where I started with an interest in geopolitics and the world, and then I went on to a career in the entertainment and media industry, which is why I'm very comfortable on YouTube. Although I don't feel like I've quite mastered the medium, I've just kind of made peace with just keep showing up, and it will reveal itself what I need to do next, the community, who I serve, how I help, and how I can do this better. But I figure if I don't make videos, I don't have a starting point, and I just have to keep going. So this is me graduating in August of 2022 with that master's in urban planning. Love that program, got a ton out of that program, and really very much started to understand a whole lot about equity in our society and how we can do a lot better, and just all of the different challenges that come with urban planning, and also looking at the GIS part of it, the data visualization, the GIS was, and just that analysis and learning coding, uh, learning R Studio, and just realizing that there was this huge world of data science and data analysis and GIS, and even like those two worlds sometimes don't always connect as closely as they could or they should. And then now moving into AI and machine learning. And so when I graduated with a master's in urban planning, on top of a BA, I was someone who my education was in the arts, not the sciences. My work was in the arts. Now, I'd come up through entertainment and media, which means I was at the beginning and all the way through digital technologies. So I've stood up so many websites. I have always done coding, but nobody ever referred to me as a developer, even though now I talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, I'm a web developer. And I was like, well, that's what I used to do. But I never really felt that I'd owned an identity as a developer. I never even really thought about when we were working with R Studio that that is coding. And so a lot of the stuff that I've always done is very natural to me. I just never felt like I always had a strong interest in it. And I always did it on my own when I worked on teams and it needed to be done. But in more corporate environments, it was not ever a skill that I ever felt was developed in me. And now that I have the choice to do that on my own, it's a skill that not only do I want to develop, but I feel like it's very much the time. Uh, I can't not develop it at this point. And I really do feel like for anything to do with urban planning or international relations or even media, like I had a film minor, is going to come full circle with just bringing back tech into the conversation. And then officially going into the sciences last fall, starting with a GIS certificate, it was the beginning of just me sort of saying, okay, I'm ready for tech. And in the urban planning degree, again, they pointed us to a lot of the stuff like RStudio, Geoda, the census data, CalEnviro screen. We learned a little about Flourish, of QGIS, of Tableau, of GraphGIS, and we learned the very basics of data visualization. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. I'd love to learn how to do that. I think that has great value. And then learning how to do graphs and linear regressions and histograms, bar charts, chloropleth maps, all words that I didn't even know what they meant or what they existed. But that's where what we find here is then, so these were my very first attempts at data science on the right, just the beginning of saying, wow, you can tell stories and you can learn about stuff and you can start seeing different correlations. And so that was very interesting to me. And that's, again, why I decided, after asking around and saying, is this something I can learn on my own, or is this something I should do in an academic program, and being very much encouraged to do the academic program. So I did. I signed up for or in this case, applied and was accepted and pursued the 1 year GIS certificate. And now here we are 1 year later. And in that time, so I now started over at the USC Dornsife Spatial Sciences Institute, and I joined a lot of things. That was a big thing and I hear all the time, like, how do I get started in data science, or how do I get started as a programmer? And I think a big part of it is to really start getting a strong sense of community, of joining. And I started raising my hands for things in ways that I never thought I could or I would before, because previously I never identified as someone who was a woman in STEM or a woman in tech. And now I was starting to say, okay, I'm in a GIST, which is Geographic Information Science and Technology program. So I can start raising my hands for these things. I also raised my hand to become an ICCAE scholar. And that one ties together with international relations. It ties together with a dedicated support that I have for Ukraine, where I microblogged for over a year on TikTok. And the only reason I stopped, actually, there was two reasons I stopped. One was I just kept getting in fights with TikTok over their community guidance standards, which I just did not feel were being fairly applied. And the second was I really wanted to come over to YouTube, but I found that the workflow was different. And I really felt like I needed to stop before I could restart and just kind of figure out YouTube. And it was just like I said, the workflow was so different. I was in such a routine and a rhythm of creating content for TikTok, and yet I didn't feel like I had a starting point for YouTube. And I had started making videos, and then of course some people who know me and love me are like, "They're kind of boring," and I was like, you know what? And I sort of stopped. And now I'm realizing, you know what? It is what it is. I'm at where I'm at. The more videos I make, the more they're going to get better. And I just need the momentum. And so the more that I make a video, the better I'll get and I'll learn from it. So they may be boring and I will get better. I just have to show up and I just have to figure this out. And that's where I'm at. So, and in that time, we learned Esri. And actually, when I was giving this presentation for women in GIS, somebody did ask me this, like, this is a serious question. I'm not joking. Did you cry when you learned Esri, ArcGIS Pro? And the answer was yes. I probably have a few more gray hairs because of it. It was incredibly challenging to learn. One thing I will say about things that are challenging is if it was easy, everybody would do it. And that's the thing, is when you really struggle and work hard on something, there is something to be said for the fact that you've taken on the challenge, you've gotten to the other side, and there's value in that. And so I have gotten to the other side of now feeling quite comfortable within the ArcGIS Pro environment, and it's a tool that I love. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm learning the customization. I'm learning the Python, and I'm learning 3D tiling with Cesium, and I'm learning just all this customization, and to really take that cartography skill to another level, and the coding skill, and the data science and data analysis. So part of what I'm very committed to being is a spatial data scientist, so that I can have that map making, but there can be a really good data cleaning, data analysis, data visualization behind it that tells an important story, and discovers things that it makes connections that we haven't seen before, but now we can see it because we're processing data this way. So we've learned about all sorts of data sets, where you find them, and of course we're still using a lot of things that are publicly available as opposed to proprietary or gated. but there's still plenty to work with. And I haven't even scratched the surface. I think if anything, I've learned how big this sort of data universe is, and also how big the GIS universe is and how many applications there are for it. So I completed that JIS certificate in August of 2023. And the two things I had started that I'd applied for in the fall of 2022, I started this program. One was Google Women Tech Makers Ambassadors program, and the other was the ICCA scholarship. And both of those things have absolutely been transformative. Excuse me. So I just that just was things that just really put me into new communities and helped me make new friends and helped me build momentum. And they've also really helped me with my content momentum, because I also realize that sometimes for me, just talking to the camera like this, it's like I'm figuring out like I can learn some whiz bang editing, and I look forward to that. I take screenshots all the time of interesting news stories and things that I'm like, ooh, that'd be really cool to share as a video. And it will take me time to sort of build that new workflow. But in the meantime, I'm just realizing I just need to start showing up. And I really love the collaborations that I'm doing. And I've done a few here on machine learning and on Git and GitHub. And I will continue to uh, do more with DevFest, and then, of course, with GIS Day. So I think that a part of where I will really grow as a creator is in my collaborations, is in my interviews, and isn't just this is me just talking and sharing and wanting to make this as interesting as possible, but also just I am where I am in this creator journey. And so the next part of it is, so on the right are again some of the maps that I've made in the last year that look at points and heat maps and lines and polygons and uh, DEMs uh, and just yeah, all sorts of just thematic maps and mapping. And then being part of the ICCAE is really being mentored by the intelligence community. And so all of those things kind of coming together, learning Python, learning SQL, being part of the USGIF, which is the Geospatial Intelligence Foundation, and being part of Google has been just a wild, wonderful ride that I just could not have done if I wasn't in school, and I where I could see these opportunities, felt like I had time to pursue these opportunities, and was qualified because of my academic pursuits. So what's next in that? So actually, one of the projects I'm working right now is finishing a Cesium 3D tiling project, which is a really cool tool. So that is a developer tool, and just growing on YouTube, continuing my 360 Talk radio show Muse and Metrics, building out the channels for Muse and Metrics, which right now has the podcasts. This channel, Philippa Burgess, Maps Data Design, Geo and AI, and just continuing to learn ArcGIS. I've just been accepted as a Microsoft student ambassador, so starting to learn more about the Microsoft universe. I've been given access to AWS if I had time for it, but I don't right now. But I'll probably at some point want to look into what's over in that space, and just continuing my work with Google and doing this DevFest this fall, wanting to learn Google Earth Engine and BigQuery. And one of my goals is to get more involved with the USC Student Developers Club, which is about to be relaunched, and also on the path to become a Google development expert. And that is something that just is going to take a certain level of expertise in geospatial to qualify, and also in Google Cloud and AI and machine learning. But again, this just is just sort of saying where I was a year ago and where I am now is feeling very much night and day in terms of my skill set, confidence, my community, the resources that I'm now aware of. And I had expanded that GIST into a full second master's in the same department at the USC Dornsife Spatial Sciences Institute into an MS in Human Security and Geospatial Intelligence. And this is expected for December 2024. So that way I still have another year to really dial in my programming, my coding, my development skills, my AI machine learning skills, my knowledge and understanding of the intelligence community, with a real sort of research focus on geo and AI, and a very strong interest in communications and wanting to be a creator and be a YouTuber and understand what that means in this intersection of geo and AI, maps data design, tech, women empowerment, and just supporting Ukraine and just being aware of global politics and national security and also climate impact. So my interests are broad, but they sort of still kind of circle the same space. And I don't quite know yet where I want to work, how I want to work, who I want to work for, who I want to work with. But I feel like I just have a strong desire over the next year as a grad student to find my voice here and understand what my videos look like and feel like and what the community wants from me and how do I build that community. And that's to me, like I said, leaning in and just yielding to the fact that this is a collaborative effort. And so we'll get there together. And if I can inspire anybody by my learning, because I see so many free resources or low cost resources, but many, many free ones. It just takes a lot of time and dedication and self motivation. And I think that that's best done in a community that cheers you on, that supports you, and that you're not alone as you're looking to skill up. Another thing I got this year was a certificate, actually, a scholarship for the certificates for the Coursera Google programs, and there's 9 of them. And I've complete they're multiple modules within or courses within their certificate program. And so I've now signed up for 9 of the certificates, which each have anywhere between 6 and 8 modules. And I have probably completed about 12 of them, and I've learned a lot. They're good, but you lack that sense of a broader, greater community. Another one of the interests that sort of popped up that sort of intersects with a lot of what I'm learning is cybersecurity. And so and again, is at that intersection because human security, geospatial intelligence, you also need cybersecurity and just security in general. And so those are all sort of things that are sort of weaving into this work that I am doing, that I'm learning. And in order to actually finalize my onboarding for the Microsoft program, they gave me a learning path and they said, hey, you need to complete these 17 modules in this challenge. And then once you do that, then you're kind of officially can be certified as long as you meet the deadline to do that as a Microsoft student ambassador. And then, of course, Adobe is a big wide world, and wanting to learn how to use Premiere Pro and After Effects and just be a good editor, because that sort of fits in the same sort of skill sets, which I've always had. I've always identified as being a writer. I've always done a lot of writing and creative work. And now that I'm doing coding, it still feels like a very similar workflow. And now that I'm doing map making or even editing, all of that sort of has that same sort of quiet time that I enjoy. But I have part of me is very outgoing and very social, and then half of me is very introverted and just really likes my quiet time with my work. I love to build things, I love to create things, and I love to problem solve. So those are all things. Don't like the tech holes as much, but that's just part of it. But I'm really, like I said, having from where I was to where I am now has just been night and day. And I just am so pleased with the opportunities and the communities and like the opportunity to be mentored by this incredible team at Google. I just finished a Women Developers Academy. Now they have me in a peer mentorship group. That's a 6-week program. And then I just signed up for another uh, peer group for women in geospatial. That's going to be one that goes from now through May of next year, and we together will create some projects and a report and some content around what we're doing together in our mentorship group. So and then I'm doing a hands-on web workshop because I really wanted to get better, been an opportunity to revisit that old HTML that I knew and CSS, which I definitely encountered in many of the websites I built. But now that those languages have been updated and evolved, and so it was really good to revisit that with somebody who knows that really well. And that's Rafna, who I did the video with for Git and GitHub. It was great to be introduced to Git and GitHub because, again, on the spatial sciences, we don't always get some of the core computer science stuff, and core software development stuff. So it's really great that I'm getting that now from this Google community. And yeah, it's just exciting. I'm like, I've come such a long way. I feel like I've come so far. Now, that's not to say I haven't like taken a huge financial stretch to do this, but I've been able to have that support of both the government and the university to cash flow me through this so that I can really get to the other side being who I want to be. And I am not there yet. I feel like I need every minute of that next year to really get these technical skills that I want, get these really hard skills and build stuff and have a portfolio that I'm really proud of, and that that sense of knowing what tools I excel at, and seeing how they fit, and then putting that into human security, into disaster management, disaster preparedness, intelligence, and having that kind of application. And so that kind of brings us the end of that. And then just one more thing I want to share is that part of Women Developers Academy, we put together a talk. And so this was my talk on GIS and machine learning, connect the dots with AI and geospatial applications. And this is me, which we just talked about that. I'm a Women Tech Makers ambassador, and I'm at USC and have been. That is my school. And that this of GIS and machine learning is very much an intersectional topic. So whoever you are, knowing your foundations, whether they're in GIS or tech or neither or both, just identify kind of where you fit on this Venn diagram. But whoever you are in the right place to talk about this. And from the GIS perspective, like what is GIS? It's geography, it's cartography, it's basically data on a map, and it's how do we tell stories about places and not just wayfaring, though maps are very important for wayfaring and how we've gone from paper to digital maps. But they also we can put a lot of information about people, about utilities and resources, and the movement of goods and services and people and money can all be mapped. And that's sort of the GIS, is that software and that technology and that whole sort of geospatial thinking that creates uh, that that value. And then there's the tech perspective. So anybody or anything that has to do with coding, with software development, with app development, with engineering, data analysis, data science, all of that stuff that's just computer science, engineering world of tech. So that's that side of it. And then you're either neither, and that's okay, or you're both. And what is spatial science? It's the data that we're getting from satellite imagery. It's the data we're getting from drones, and it's the data we're getting from all sorts of data sets that have some sort of spatial component, that they identify a region, a country, a state, a county, a city, or a very, very specific kind of point on a map with specific latitude and longitude. It's our phones as GPS. They're connecting to those satellites. It's, again, data, tabular data that's stored in an Excel file. It can also be sentiment data that's geotagged. And that's kind of unstructured data. And we'll get into that as we're talking about the machine learning part of it. And so it's how do you tell stories with maps? Again, people, utilities, anything that just can be given a place on the globe, and all of those layers that you can put on and then process and analyze in all of these ways to help make decisions or better understand certain things or communicate issues to other people. And what are place-based data decisions? So one of the earliest data maps was London, 1854. This is John Snow, and John Snow did a map for cholera. They didn't understand what was causing the illness and the death, and he just mapped where the cases were, and then found that the most cases were next to water pumps. And so when they were able to shut down those water pumps, they were able to stop the spread of cholera. And so this is an example of like, what is a data map? That's a data map. And so this is a hand-drawn one. Now we do it in digital, but it's the same concept of what can we learn from data, and how can we have real-world solutions to problems. And so all sorts of ways that we have data. So here you have the satellite imagery, or just like, again, you're putting points on about communicating where things are happening around the world, or you have a heat map. The one on the right is actually bird migration. and sort of what are those population densities. Or at the bottom, you've got sort of 3D maps and the stories that you can tell about a city in 3D when you put kind of those different layers on. So, what is AI innovation and automation? And this is where it was introduced to me. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and then deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Calculus to Fahrenheit conversion formula. In the old world, before this AI machine learning, you would give the formula to the computer. In AI machine learning, you don't give it the formula. So you don't give it Fahrenheit equals Celsius times 9/5 plus 32. Instead, you just give it the numbers, the before and the after. You give it all the Fahrenheit, you give it all the Celsius, it figures it out. It figures out what the pattern is, it figures out what the calculation is. And then from there, it can do that predictive analysis. If you were only to give it Fahrenheit, it would generate Celsius, or vice versa, because it's been trained and it sort of can figure out what that equation is. So the most common geo AI applications are going to be data cleaning, categorization, change detection, and prediction modeling. That's how we use AI and machine learning. And then the data types that you have that you work with are either raster, vector, structured, or unstructured. Raster is like a sheet. It lays over, like it's pixelated. So any kind of imagery, satellite imagery, drone imagery, that's going to be raster data. LiDAR, where they sort of do points that kind of bounce back, and so you can sort of see with the height and dimensions of things. The vector is points, lines, and polygons, of which I have examples here. The top right is points, bottom left is lines, which is like a pour point of rivers and a watershed. And the bottom right is a country, and that's the country of Zambia. And so that's the polygon shape. Structured data is tabular data. So points, lines, and polygons are going to be something that you can put into an Excel sheet with those location points. And unstructured data is pixelated data, or like tweets and things like that that are unstructured. And that's the difference between machine learning can work well with structured data. Deep learning works really well with unstructured data. And so that's kind of all of the kind of data types that we work with. And then geo AI in action, examples of how it's being used. You've got the city of Los Angeles predicts crime, state of California manages its forests, AT&T maps climate risks, UN provides early flood warnings. So this is all ways in which geo AI is being used and deployed, and will only continue to be. There's just so many use cases for it. So now let's connect the points and pixels. And how do you do this? How do you actually create a GIS machine learning model? And so here you use a tool. So there's Esri that has the ArcGIS suite of tools. So either ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, or ArcGIS Enterprise. We, in our program, use ArcGIS Pro, or you use Google Earth Engine, or you use free open source GIS programs such as GrassGIS or QGIS. And then you use a programming language. So you can use Python, C++, JavaScript, R, Java as kind of the intermediary programming language to then connect you to the machine learning tools and libraries. So TensorFlow or Scikit-learn or IBM Watson are those machine learning tools. And so basically you're going to pick essentially typically one from each of these columns and put them together, and that's how you're going to create your GIS machine learning tool. And now that, like, for example, you've got your tabular data in a CSV file, you've got Python, you've got TensorFlow, this is actually what the code looks like. And this is where you're able to start by importing your libraries. Here you're using NumPy, Pandas, you got your TensorFlow, and you're going to then sort of start to split your data, which is a standard in machine learning, and then you're going to train that model, and then you're going to fit the model, test the model for accuracy, and then sort of print that accuracy. And so that's kind of how you would code that. And then an example of how this looks is that if you're doing a time analysis, you've got you can see kind of on the left, basically they're looking at forest data, forest damage. The reddest parts are the worst damage, and then they sort of process it over time to then sort of have it so you can see kind of what's on the right as pink is the most damage that hasn't recovered, and what's white or light green on the right is where you're starting to see new growth. And so these are ways in which they can process a lot of imagery, imagery taken with time sequences, and use that to evaluate, where there's recovery and where there's still damage or risk. And the question now is, what will you do with GIS and machine learning? There's a lot to do. There's still a lot to learn for me, but it's a fun learning, and I'm really enjoying putting together these projects. But the goal of it is that we can see and solve big problems. And that's why we do it. And that's what I'm interested in learning. And that's the application that I aim to have, is to see and solve big problems. So with that, I thank you. And again, you've got this channel, Philippa Burgess, and over at Maps Data Design, I'm going to be putting a lot more of that kind of more GIS focused and data science stuff focused over there. And that's an example of some of my adventures. So with that, I am just coming in to say hi and talk about kind of how much a year has made, what kind of a difference it made, how wonderfully overwhelmed I am, and busy, because I just have so much coming at me, so many opportunities, and for better or for worse, I've raised my hand for so many things, and then of course I fall down tech holes, and they just are what they are. And I just think that I'm cutting my teeth. I know, in order to sort of actually have tech credibility, I need to build a GitHub. And as a student, there's just so many packages and gifts and bonuses and discounts that are available as a student with GitHub. So, and I see, that's what I said, this is why I want to kind of co-create this community, because I see so many opportunities, whether it's in and around USC, or it's just as a graduate student, or it's just being on a learning journey and sort of inspiring others around that I want to share my voice, share me, be authentically me, but I also want to co-create based on the audience that finds me and how we can sort of build this together. Because I've had a really strong desire for the last few years. I think it started when I was just doing a lot of TikTok and finding a nice audience and finding my feet. It was just when I started getting in these conflicts around the community guidelines in support of Ukraine that I just was like, I can't, it just did not feel like the right platform for me anymore. And I just knew there would be just kind of this transition, because it's a different workflow here on YouTube. And I'm starting to get that and understand that. And I just say hi, thank you for joining me. I was just going through stuff, and like I said, as I'm building my channel, I'm starting to talk about different things that, how do we co-create together what adds the most value to a growing community. And I'm just so grateful for it. And I'm going to wrap this up now. I think that I have shared what I wanted to share today about 1 year later in graduate school, and really encourage anybody, if you want to make a big leap in your life, there's a risk factor to it for sure. But also I've the support from my family, from my community, has really rallied around me in a way that allows me to do this, and allows me to kind of take this risk, and very confident that if I just keep learning, keep grinding, and do it with joy and build community, that it will all reveal itself, and that will be a good thing. And if I can inspire others along the way, or just help them get started, point in a direction, I think there's a lot of the questions that I see from people are just like, where do I begin? And I do think that that's something that school really helps with, because you just have to show up, and they lean in, and they share they already have a very pre-planned, well-structured, well thought out learning transformation designed. So as long as you're just there along for the ride and willing to follow instructions and work with the deadlines and just kind of keep moving along and just generally show up with commitment, interest, passion, curiosity. It is a great thing. And I think as graduate students, they really say, bring your own interest, bring your own research, bring your own application to the various tech things that they're introducing us to. So there's really a lot of leeway there to make these things your own. And I'm just really pleased because I remember making a video about this over a year ago. It was actually August of 2022 when I very first was like, oh, I want to play with YouTube and see what I can do there. And although I haven't made the YouTube progress that I hoped to make, but part of it was just I wasn't showing up. I wasn't making many videos, so I wasn't going to make progress. But I was so busy sort of taking a lot of these other opportunities and this other learning, and I'm happy for it. But I want to do both. I want to be able to have a presence on YouTube and build a community here, as well as go forward and continue to build these technical skills and these hard skills and have fun doing it and make cool stuff. That was probably one of the best pieces of advice I got recently from a Google developer was don't get stuck in a tutorial loop. Go ahead and build stuff. And that is what my intention is to do, to build stuff. But also along with building stuff is building the community as well. So I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks again, and please engage, comment, tell me how I can help, how I can serve best this community and your needs wherever you are or however you know me, that I can best share what I'm going through, what I've committed to, and where I want to go from here. All right, thanks again. Take care.